Welcome to our training video on presentations. Before we get started, let me give you a little bit of background about how presentations work. Very similar to results in that it's permission-based. Admins and power users have the permissions to create the presentations, and measure owners, based on what they own, can edit pages related to the measures that are being reviewed. If you do not own any of the measures being reviewed, you can only view the presentation. Let's go ahead and get started by selecting presentation. You'll see here that there are currently two presentations. One's in draft and one is in final. Let's go ahead and create a new presentation. Let's call this the March presentation. Quick check. And we can put a description for a training video and hit add. Okay, once I do that, you'll see that the presentation is now reflected in the list below. I'm going to go ahead and do some editing. This has just created the shell of the presentation. I now need to load in the pages or the measures that will be reviewed in this presentation. I do that by selecting Edit. And you'll see in this screen there are some additional fields that we can set. One is a status. The presentation can be in draft or final mode. Each presentation has an owner. Okay, but this is where I need to add my pages down below. I do that by first naming each page. I'm going to create a page on a metric called patient satisfaction. I hit add. And then I'm going to do a second page on operating margin, and I hit add. Again, this has created the shell of the pages. We still need to tag the actual metrics to it. But before I do that, I want to go ahead and change the order of the pages, and I really want to review operating margin before patient satisfaction. I do that by simply clicking on the metric or the page name and dragging it into the order I want. The next step here, I'm going to go ahead and save those changes. The next step is to actually edit each page. Okay, you'll see that when I go ahead and select edit, I see my presentation name, my page name, which I can also edit here. But I want to tag and find that particular measure so the chart shows. I do that by clicking, and the dialog box opens and I get a list of all my metrics that are in the database. And when I select a metric, I can, the chart appears, but I can go ahead and actually change the date here. I'm just going to go ahead and do it through that date, and I can refresh my chart. I'm going to go ahead and save that change. Okay, the box below the chart is my narrative. Again, I need to tag what metric it is related to. I go ahead and I save. I'm the admin for our organization. I really want the measure owner to fill in this narrative here versus me emailing and getting that information and me having to load it. I want the ability to have all my measure owners be in the presentation at the same time. So I've gone ahead and created my first page, but let's go ahead and do the same for our second page. Again, I go back to my list and I select edit for my second page. I select edit again and I get that dialog box. I can look by map or just look at all the metrics. Select the chart that I want. Again, I can go ahead and change the date range and hit refresh and hit save. Do the same for the narrative down below. So that's simple. Okay, so now my presentation is ready for my measure owners. So what do the measure owners see when they log in? Let's go ahead and switch. I'm going to switch to what one of the measure owners would see. I do that. Let me pull up Janet's view. Okay, I am now logged in as Janet. She's one of the measure owners in my presentation. So Janet goes into presentations. She knows she's on point to go ahead and update the March presentation. You'll see based on her permissions, she has a couple presentations where she has metrics. When you have that, you get the edit option. You'll see when she goes into the presentation, she only owns one of the two metrics. So operating margin is the one that she is responsible to edit, and she does that by hitting the edit button. She can go ahead and refresh this chart if she wants to change the date range by hitting that edit button. But for now, she wants to add in the information about this metric. She's going to put a headline. She can put current status. And whoops, add additional information there. Let me, metric is on track to hit target. She can add a smaller headline and next steps. Continue to monitor. Obviously, for a real presentation, you want additional information, but the information is there and they can fill out all this space. Let's take a look at what the presentation would look like. You do that by hitting preview, okay, and you see her page. You'll see when you actually are looking at the page in presentation mode, you get the additional features. You get the owner description calculation. Okay, and it looks nice, so she goes ahead and closes it. Let's go back to the presentation main screen and actually view what the entire presentation looks like. You do that by selecting the View button. Okay, and you'll see that you get a title page here, and if I put an additional narrative here, it would be reflected. Your logo would get for your organization that's in the tenant would appear in the corner there. Okay, you get a list of the metrics that would appear in their presentation. And then you get each individual measure review page that you set up for your presentation, and you can scroll there. We didn't go ahead and load that information in there, but that's what it would look like. And then after you have your measure review meeting, we do recommend that you go ahead and flip it to final so that you can archive it and the data in the chart gets established for the time frame that you did the presentation. So that's our results presentation module. We look to add additional functionality in the next 2 months. I'll look forward to hearing what you thought of the module, and please send in your feedback. Thank you.